Mitch, tools of preference?
I think firstly, let's not overstate the gap from where we are to where we want to be. I think there's some great tools out there. I'm not just talking about BuzzNumbers. There are some really useful tools out there that can deliver a lot of value. What I would say to Matt's question is that I would encourage any agency that is worried about budget to encourage their clients to audit what they're doing, not just to know whether that particular piece of strategy or that particular piece of creative work delivered by the agency has been successful, but to better understand their brand. So I certainly understand that cost does become an issue, and it does become one of those things where, you know, if you're on a small budget or on a particularly tight budget, it can be prohibitive to track. But I would always encourage agencies to push that back to the client and make that their responsibility to understand their own business.
So just like agencies push clients to do brand dipsticks and stuff that they do on their brand in the market, encourage them to do the same kind of measurement online in a social perspective especially.
Absolutely. And look, in using, you know, platforms like our own or other alternatives out there, they're going to provide you the data and the insights that you need to improve your campaigns going forward anyway. So,
is there a preferred method you guys put forward for this kind of stuff? Do you say, hey, do a before, do a mid, do an after? Like, do you have a recommended way of doing it?
I think everybody needs to have a sample to start from. You need to actually look at what is happening in the marketplace, and once you've looked at what's happening, you can then say, right, well, this is the potential opportunity. And at the minute, people aren't even prepared to do the sampling, and it doesn't matter which kind of sentiment analysis tool you're talking about. If the client doesn't buy into it, then everything thereafter is going to be a guess.
Yep. To Marie Claire, really, semantics, sentiment, how would you deal with sarcasm in that respect? So someone says, I think it was the example that was used, oh, Telstra, good work, thanks, you really messed up my account, brilliant, cheers, that sort of thing.
It's so difficult. I mean, language has so many different dimensions to it. People from different regions talk differently, let alone, you know, even within Sydney, people speak differently. It's just so difficult. Humour is another, you know, it's just so hard to do. Right now, I don't know of anybody or anything that can do that. So we're getting there, but we're
actually reading the comments. Yeah. Wasting time.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen Amazon come out with a tool just like that, Mechanical Turk. They actually get human analysis based on comments and topics and various mentions. So there are human tools, and humans are certainly a lot better of it. I guess when it comes down to sarcasm, when it comes down to detecting sarcasm, to understanding all that, I think, Mary Claire's been making this point right from the word go, is that if we could understand that, then, we'd probably nail all the problems that we've spoken about tonight. So that really is the holy grail, I think.
One last thing on that. Facebook's API, for example, will tell you the number of people who have commented on a link to your website. It will tell you the number of people who've liked that link. Now, trying to bucket that is impossible because you never know what the conversation was. Now, what you could say is that it's great that people are commenting around that link, but we don't know what they're saying. And maybe what you try to do is, rather than getting that conversation to take place within a social media group or a social media or networking site, that you try to bring that conversation into one of your controlled web properties and actually engage with people or maybe open up your rules of engagement to try and draw people into an area that they're comfortable to make those kind of comments on one of your properties rather than on a third party's property. And that's obviously building confidence in brand, in product, and obviously with trust in the web, that if they make a comment on your website, that you're not going to suddenly then syndicate it out to 5,000, 10,000 people, which at the moment, if you look at kind of people who are doing Twitter, and actively participating with kind of Twitter engagement, if there's any kind of positive sentiment, you tend to see brands retweeting it. That from a consumer perspective is suddenly being distributed to potentially 5,000-10,000 followers of a brand. That's not necessarily what an individual wants when they make that kind of positive comment around a brand. You know, it's almost like the company has to control their kind of excitement about having a small social media success. Well done, you've pleased one customer. Don't tell everybody.
Just seems to be a lot of questions about Facebook and people concerned that maybe they're going to close the API somewhat because they're ultimately pushing towards more of a recommendation engine rather than traditional search. And I'm just interested in what the panel has to say about this mimetic evolution, the idea that information that can copy effectively will copy, and the information that can't dies off, similar to genetic evolution. And so the technology that's symbiotic and promoting information being able to be copied will ultimately thrive. So if these people like Facebook close their APIs down, essentially that information won't spread as far and they'll become less successful, and the companies that are willing to open those APIs and allow that information to spread through this kind of universal Darwinism will actually allow they'll become more successful and ultimately keep the APIs open.
Just the fact that you managed to fit universal Darwinism into this, I think everyone should have a shot, or maybe 3, so we can get up to your speed on this. But I guess you're trying to say that things that are open will survive, things that are closed wall gardens won't?
Pretty much, yeah.
That was the one thing that I was just about to say. The iPhone at the moment is probably one of the commercial answers to that question, because if they do not open up the access to the software development kit to the wider development audience, developers are just going to develop for the free for the free software development kits for Android, and for I think Windows have just announced with Windows 7 Mobile that and Android has outsold the iPhone in the US for the last quarter. So it could be it could be down to the open aspect that actually changes.
I think I read a pretty interesting article about 12 months ago. It was a guy who used to read a whole bunch of sites like Boing Boing and Kotke's Remain and Links and all that sort of stuff daily, and he basically turned around and said, well, most of these links that I'm reading here, most of these interesting articles are getting spoken about at work, they're coming up in my social networks, and he ran an experiment on social surfacing where he actually went through and on a daily basis compared the popular articles that he was reading in his own Google Reader, and then compared it with the articles that he was being promoted to him via his friends on Twitter and Facebook anyway. And I guess while his research is pretty inconclusive and he only had a sample of one person, it does kind of illustrate the point that with closed networks we're going to see less and less people sharing, but I don't think that's the way any of the networks are heading. I think they're heading in the exact opposite direction.
I think that we've talked a lot about user data, but we've not talked a lot about all this other data that we've got on the web at the moment, which is semantic web data, and all of the things that semantic web is already allowing us to do. And the fact that we can pull in, already data from BBpedia and places like that and start mashing it up with other things is far more interesting than what Facebook has on a single person who clicked on a picture. So I'll invite you all to the Sydney Semantic Web Group. Drop by.
Guess just want to say a huge thank you to the guys here, Mary Claire, Andrew and Mitch. Please, a big round of applause for them giving their time to come here and talk about some of the hairy issues of metrics. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Thanks for the organisers, just like every week, for organising this phenomenal event. Look online for the photos for tonight. Keep in touch online on the Twitters so that you can make sure you come to the next event. Have a drink, have a discussion. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.